Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always, here I'm your host, Glen Alexander, and on tonight's episode of the podcast, I'm joined by David Talks Buffs. David, how's it going?
Cal, thank you so much for having me. What a better way to spend the last week of the regular season of college football than hanging out with some other Big 12 fans. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, well, hey, thanks so much. Really do appreciate you here. We want to talk through some Oklahoma State stuff, some Colorado stuff here. Figure out maybe there is a way Oklahoma State fans can be excited for this game here this upcoming weekend, and I should say weekend, but Friday morning, and, really see, hey, maybe we could stand a chance here against the Colorado Buffaloes. You guys looked a little bit more human this past weekend against Kansas than I thought previously, but then again, KU, I don't know. Maybe they're just a tricky team. What'd you take away from that one, at least?
Cal, I didn't mention this to you backstage. My fans are probably so over me talking about this, but last Saturday was my birthday, man. So the Buffs really dropped the ball on my birthday. I mean, that was probably our worst performance of the year, man, and it sucked. It sucked when we had our destiny in our control. But hey, we still got a slight chance of making it, as long as we take care of business against the Cowboys. But we're gonna need to bounce back. That's for sure. But nonetheless, it doesn't take away from the great season that we've had. I think pretty much exceeding everybody's expectations for the team this year, and it just feels great to be back in the Big 12, man.
Yeah, I think it's great that Colorado's rejoined. I almost want Nebraska to rejoin as well at this point too. Just kind of get the whole, it's fun watching some Nebraska football time to time. Just 90,000 people, diehard fans always out there, even if they're moaning and groaning. I've rewatched a couple of Oklahoma State games when we played Nebraska towards their end of the Big 12 era, and gone, man, you know what? We actually were pretty good then. So it wasn't that bad against Nebraska as it used to be. But having Colorado back, I think is great for several reasons. I host the Big 12 Huddle here. Comes out usually tomorrow. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, it comes out tomorrow. And do it every week here. But we basically talk about, hey, it's great to have Deion and Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. And I mean, just kind of the whole Colorado see me back in it. It gets us a new kind of step into the Mountain West area of literal Mountain West of like mountainous region. That's Western in the United States. I'm not saying the Mountain West Conference, of course. And it gets us also kind of a little bit more, I want to say like just amps us back up as a conference a little bit as well too, because we're not taking, BYU, which was not a Power 5 school, too long ago, or we're taking Utah, which till they joined the Pac-12 was like, how is Utah doing? All that type of stuff. It's like, no, Colorado, they've got a Heisman Trophy winner. They've got a national championship in football. They have a top 10 draft pick this last year in the NBA, and a bunch of other guys here who are, scouting it out and stuff, right? I mean, of course, you got Deion as the head coach. Of course, you got Travis Hunter, Heisman Trophy. I don't want to crown him yet, but I mean, it's hard to say he wouldn't win Heisman this year, right? So ask you a little bit about that here as well. What do you think is going to happen with Travis Hunter and the Heisman Trophy conversation before we talk more of the Oklahoma State matchup?
Oh man, yeah. This is a big can of worms, but obviously, I think Travis Hunter should win this. I think that anybody that's just saying, hey, he's just winning because he's the most well-conditioned athlete. Come on now, man. Come on. This guy's projected to go number 1, number 2 overall in the NFL draft. He's a fantastic wide receiver. He's a fantastic cover corner as well. And we just don't see this. And I would say that this is probably a down year for quarterback in general. And so it kind of makes sense to like for a player like him, I think to win it, everything's kind of lining up well. I think preseason, most people, whether they're fans or experts, I think they said, Colorado would need to probably win 8+ games for Travis Hunter to be in, that Heisman finalist contention. And we've reached that. I think that, 1,000-yard receiver, double-digit touchdowns. We don't win these games without him. And I've watched obviously every Colorado game he's played here, and I've never seen a boundary player, have as much impact on both our offense and defense ever. Like I've never seen that. So it's been surreal to have him here. It still feels like a dream. It's kind of sad that it's going to be over here shortly. But again, like this program, whether you love us or hate us, what I love, Cal, is that very rarely do people feel indifferent right now about Colorado football, and we were irrelevant throughout our time in the Pac-12. People didn't care about us. People were very apathetic, and it's just great to be in a conference, which I think we're pretty united, where we have 15 out of the 16 teams really excited to be here. So that's a pretty great ratio or percentage, and it's nice to be part of a conference where everybody's amped up to play us. And I think that we've really enjoyed the brand of football, the teams that we're playing against as well. I think it's a phenomenal fit, and this is another conversation, but something's got to change where we get the respect that this conference deserves. I think that we're pound for pound the toughest conference in college football.
I do too. I want to ask you though. You said 15 out of 16 teams. Who's that one school that doesn't want to be in the Big 12?
Man, I guess I got to spell it out straight, but it
Well,
definitely has to be Mark Harlan in the Utah Utes. I mean, I guess they were excited to come to the Big 12 until a couple weeks ago, till for some reason, they got a win stolen away from them. Now, I was hoping that the Big 12 refs would be better than our Pac-12 refs I've been used to watching, but I just, I don't I don't see much difference, sadly. But yeah, Utah, man, like I do like the fact that they're in the conference, because you do need a heel. You do need some heels to root against, and I do think that they're a good fit for that. But yeah, it's been strange that they've had a little bit of a run, but it's almost like they wanted to be the next Texas coming in here, and I think that this year was a rude awakening for Utes fans.
yeah, all of the Utah fans and all the Facebook groups and Twitter or X and now it's Threads and Blue Sky, whatever it may be. Anything that I see out there is Utah fans going, "Well, hey, here's another reason why Utah is great. We've beaten the only Big 12 schools we played, the true Big 12 schools we played. We've beaten them." Like, yeah, you beat Oklahoma State. We have not won a game in conference. Cool, nicely done. I mean, good job. And then the other schools that you've lost to have been Arizona State or I mean, just Arizona, BYU example. The fun anecdote I have here for you is that last year those Big 12 refs in the BYU Utah game were Pac-12 refs, so they came right over. Now I've been wrong a little bit here and there on that Big 12 Huddle show about how those refs came over. So I'm not going to try to go back through all that history because I've said it both ways and I forget which it is. But basically, those guys, that whole officiating crew was Pac-12 refs last year. They're Big 12 refs this year. Who knows what's going on? Who knows what's going on with the Arizona State and BYU whole locker room scenario? But I'll dive right back in here, ask you about this Friday morning matchup here on Black Friday, of course. We got the black and gold Buffs going up against the black and orange Oklahoma State Cowboys. How do you think this game plays out? Do you think this is from the jump? We just see Colorado go out to a huge lead, or what do you see happening?
I would love for that to be the ideal scenario. I mean, we've seen that like a couple times this year, but that really hasn't been kind of like Colorado's MO. I think that there's been a couple of games that I would count this year as playing like truly like complete four quarters of like well-rounded football, like really good. But we have been susceptible to slow starts in leaving teams around in the first half to kind of hang around, to kind of have some belief. I think that if you rewind a couple weeks ago to our game against Utah. I mean, nobody was expecting Utah to come in and beat us, but they hung around for that first half, or that first quarter and a half or so. They played really good defense, and they were able to intercept Shedeur on the first play of the game, the first drive that Colorado had. That's happened, I think, 3 times this year where Shedeur's been I think he's got like 6 picks or something like that. So it's like half of them have happened on the opening drive this year, which is just insane to think about. But we have let teams kind of hang around in that first half. And so, while I mean, I do expect Colorado to get this win on Friday, Yeah, I'm not, especially after our performance last week, coming off of our worst defensive performance. I'm expecting us to bounce back, but I'm not taking anything for granted, man. The Big 12, they don't get the respect that they deserve. And even though Oklahoma State has not fared well this year, I think below everybody's expectations this year. As long as you got Ollie Gordon, I think you guys are going to have a shot.
Yeah, I do too, and I also think now that we have a true freshman quarterback who started out in the roster as the fourth string guy,
Wow.
um, you know, I pronounced his name wrong before. So Milwaukee or Malachi Smith,
Okay.
he's going to start for us. I would assume here this Friday. Now I don't think Gundy said he wouldn't, but he started for Oklahoma State on Senior Day when we've got a seventh year quarterback, Alan Bowman, who started every game up until Senior Day this year. So not start Senior Day and then not start the
Benched on
following
senior
week.
day. That's
Yeah,
rough.
bench on Senior Day, and then to be back in the lineup starting against Colorado would be an odd move. So I believe he starts here this weekend. There could be two things that work for Oklahoma State fans. One, Smith is way, way more mobile than Alan Bowman. I do not want to disrespect a certain player for any certain reason, but Bowman's strength is not moving around in the pocket. It is not being a guy who does a lot of things, in scrambling around or in a quarterback boot or a play action read or whatever. Bowman's is definitely more of a, hey, I can throw the deep ball somewhat
Mhm.
accurately, but the accuracy's been very, very in and out this year. So that being said, I think this Oklahoma State team could catch Colorado by surprise just because our quarterback has some different dynamical abilities. And it's just a different quarterback that has basically seen one full game of tape, against Texas Tech. So how well do you think the Colorado team as a whole reviews tape and week after week goes through and goes, hey, you know what? We'll make adjustments here and there based on what we saw last week because this is not the Oklahoma State team from weeks 1 through 10. This is the Oklahoma State team from literally last week basically coming in because they do look a lot different and a lot better, especially in the running game with Ollie Gordon after last week and putting up 48 points, which is the most points we put up in a game in a long time, it seems too.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's a really interesting point that you bring up because I think that we have had a tougher time with mobile quarterbacks in terms of defending them. I mean, you saw uh, Jalen Daniels. I think probably had. I would have to say that it would be his best game. I mean, when you don't punt the entire game, I don't care if you're settling for field goals half the time. Put up 37. You didn't punt once. You played the Jayhawks played what I would call a perfect game offensively against us last week. And, Jalen Daniels, I think he only had 6, 7 rushes, but it's those, a really good stud running back combined with a dynamic athlete at the quarterback position has given us trouble from time to time throughout the season. So, like Avery Johnson, it's really interesting because I didn't really feel like he had his best game on the ground against us. But what you're going to get, Cal, is a lot of man coverage. You're going to get a lot of loading up the box to stop Ollie Gordon. I mean, none of this is probably a shock to you. This is basic stuff. You want to stop the run and make a young quarterback pass and have to make some great throws against good coverage and guys like Avery Johnson, I mean, I feel like he had his coming out game as a passer against us this year, where he was just throwing dimes there in crunch time at the end of the game. Um, and yeah, we face some other mobile quarterbacks that have provided issue. There are guys that are more. I wouldn't call Noah Fafita a running quarterback or anything like that. Like he really does need like a good offensive line to be successful. And with those pocket passers, man, we've been able to feast on those less mobile guys. I mean, I'm not sure where we're at now, but coming into last week, we led the Big 12 in sacks. We have a really impressive pass rush, but we barely got to Jalen Daniels because I think we were a little bit more concerned about containing him, and we got out of honestly what our mojo is, which is to dictate the pace of play. It's to come out, be more aggressive. It's to rush the passer. It's to play reactionary, not thinking a whole bunch. And credit to Kansas, man. I just feel like they got us out of our game plan. They really dictated the entire game. But Cal, we are 2-0 after a loss this year. It's my hope that we can get to 3-0 after a loss. We'll have to see. But there's a reason, man, why I thought that this would be a really tough game coming into the season. Oklahoma State at the end. I know, like, I was expecting us to see Alan Bowman, but we're not getting that now. But Ollie Gordon is not to be taken lightly, and we got to come with a better effort. It seemed like we just were not intimidated by Devin Neal at all, and he had his career best day against us last week.
Yeah, I got to say, I think there's a lot of Oklahoma State hope that we could win this game. To point out a comment here as well,
Rudy.
but it's not realistic hope. I want to say that as well too. Like, there's no reason we should win this game. This is a game Oklahoma State loses 99 times out of 100. It's a road game. It's on a Friday morning. It's like bizarre. It's to a stadium we haven't been to in several years. None of our
Yeah.
players have played at Colorado on the roster, from what I could see, even guys
Yeah.
transferring in. So there's no reason for me to go, oh, there's some familiarity, or oh, we should be, or oh, we got the coaching. We like nothing going into this game makes me go, oh, you know what, we've got this one. Like, oh, we got a shot here. The only thing that makes me have a little bit of hope is that we've got a different quarterback and a different schemes. But
Yeah.
we this year so far have had really close games right after a bye week, which was the Texas Tech game we just had. And then before then, the BYU game at BYU, where we lost by 3. We had a different quarterback in both of those 2 games as well. At least to start out the game. The BYU game we ended because with Alan Bowman as our quarterback, because our starting quarterback got injured literally on a 54-yard run. He broke his collarbone and is out for the season. But all that together, I don't expect us to win. I don't expect the game to necessarily be close, except for maybe a kind of garbage time touchdown or so where the score
Mhm.
just looks better. Use a old Bob Stoops quote. Yeah, we're gonna punt it so that the score looks better at the end of the day because they're gonna down it. Like if we go for it and all of a sudden something happens and they score another 7,
Yeah.
hey, 50-17 looks a lot worse, rightfully so, you know, than 42-17. Something about
Yeah.
putting up 50, just looks that much worse, right? So, or 43, I guess. But I'm curious here from your standpoint. What ways do you think Oklahoma State could win? Would it be the running game overall? Do you think that's Colorado's biggest weakness, or what do you think the biggest weakness is for the Buffs?
Yeah, I think so. Everybody's dealing with injuries at this point, and Colorado's no exception. I think that, um, like last week, for instance, our starting defensive tackle next to our other starter, Chidozie Nwankwo, Shane Cokes was not active, and I think that, hey, that probably played a role in a subpar performance from the defense, right? He is back for this week, but we're also missing our main rotational guy now in that interior, Mari McNeil. So we also struggled last week in coverage, particularly with some of those slot receivers. Our slot corner, Preston Hodge, he has been out, and he's been a fantastic transfer that we had. I don't think that he's expected to play in this game either, which sucks. And so last week, kind of the plan was we had one of our safeties mainly playing in the slot, Carter Stoutmeyer, number 23. That didn't work as well. That's probably an adjustment that you see this week. I think Colton Hood is somebody, number 3, that you could probably see in the slot a little bit more this game. Transfer from Auburn. DJ McKinney, I'm sure you guys are familiar with him, number 8. He will start outside. He's been fantastic for us all year. He's been really great. But definitely guarding the tight ends or guarding, different receivers in the slot, that can be a little tough, as well as dealing with the threat of a running quarterback that has been challenging for time to time for us. Hodges playing, I thought I saw Coach Prime said that he wasn't, but my reading comprehension's not the best, Cal. I got a question for you, though.
Yeah.
I'm not following Oklahoma State too closely. I do know last year there was some talk about Mike Gundy, retiring. Then you guys kind of had a strong surge, if I remember correctly. Might you get a better effort from the Cowboys this week if this kind of being talked about as Mike Gundy's last game coaching the Cowboys?
Yeah, I honestly think there's a lot of earlier on in the season, I think there was a lot of, "Oh, Gundy's gotta go," but with the new quarterback starting on senior day and Alan Bowman being relegated to the bench on his I mean, the guy's been around he played at Tech for a while, he played at Michigan, then he plays Oklahoma State for 2 years. When he didn't start senior day, I think that was a big enough note of, okay, Gundy's trying to make changes. He is willing to accept that, hey, Bowman's not the guy. I think if he had rode Bowman out through the rest of the season, then this offseason, we'd hear a lot more of that. But Gundy recently said in a press conference, I'm not retiring. Wife won't let me. I've still got too much energy. And I forget how old exactly Gundy is, but I know he's not 60.
He's not 40.
Yeah, he's not 40, but he's somewhere in between those two brackets, because he was 40 when he started coaching for Oklahoma State, and he's been around 19 years. So he's getting close to 60, don't get me wrong, but he's definitely not retirement age in
Okay.
my book. And I don't think he would retire. He's definitely probably dyeing his hair because otherwise it should be gray. But I'm not trying to take shots at him. I'm just trying to say he looks younger than maybe he is.
Mhm.
I do think an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator change happens this offseason. Our defense is, granted, dealt with some injuries, but like you said, everyone has. We had 2 preseason All-Americans on our defensive side that have not played since game 4. The defensive end, Colin Oliver, has not played since game 2. Halftime against Arkansas, he got injured and haven't seen him again since. And honestly, at this point, I wouldn't come back if I was him, just because I'd kind of hold out. If he has some draft stock, keep it. And then Nick Martin was the other All-American preseason guy who, yeah, I think he's also kind of seeing what everything's going on, and he's like, you know what, maybe I'll also kind of go the draft here and be out that way as well too, because it's just there's no way the defense should be as bad as it is,
Mhm.
but I don't want to just say, hey, injury, injury, injury. That's the only reason why we're bad. Like, this is a team where we have Brian Nardo is a guy who came in from D2. He's not a well-known guy. He's a defensive coordinator. He brought in a 3-3-5 scheme. We haven't ran that scheme. And I would like to say
Huh.
we could, but we haven't really ran it. I don't think we have the personnel to today. But if Nardo came back next year, I'd be very confused because we are the worst team defensively in several metrics in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And
You guys are
and
giving up over 500 yards of offense. That's shocking to me.
yeah, and this is a team here that Jim Knowles is the Ohio State coordinator for defense, and he was the Oklahoma State defensive coordinator in 2021 in our best season in recent memory, winning the Fiesta Bowl, granted losing the Big 12 championship in absolutely heartbreaking fashion to Baylor, but Jim Knowles was the defensive coordinator then, and then he got basically just bought to go to Ohio State. They paid him more than we could offer him, or that we did offer him, whatever you want to say.
Mhm.
And he's gone. And since then, it's been like, okay, we had Derek Mason for a year. We had now we've got Nardo in, and it's like, what's going on here? This is an odd deal to be in. And Nardo's just not it. I mean, I don't know a better way to say it. It seems as though his defensive schemes, either he's not able to coach up the guys well enough to go, you got to try harder, or he's not doing enough to really get the teams schematically to play a really good defense. Because I anticipate Colorado being able to run the ball all over us. I do not anticipate Shedeur, Travis Hunter having a huge game through the air because I don't think you guys will need to. I think you'll be able to kind of drain the clock, have some touchdowns that are a little bit easier than you thought would be, at least to start out the game. If there was some really weird weather, I could see something different happening or some other bizarre situations. But for everything I can tell, you guys are a really, really good running team. Running the ball, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, comparatively against us, you are at least, and that's saying a lot here with Ollie Gordon. So, I think you'll be able to, to kind of hinder us in the passing game and hinder us in the running game enough where we'll play where we have this season more or less. And yeah, we put up 48 points last week. I think that's kind of, hey, we had a new quarterback, and how is Texas Tech going to play against us this way? And they didn't know who we were going to start a quarterback because we didn't know who we were going to start a quarterback until literally, game time. So how's it all working out? And then come back around for your Gundy question, last year the team started out 2-2. Then the fifth game of the season, we beat K-State at home
Mhm.
by like 11, and it was all right. Now we're off to the races. Maybe this could be a good season. Bowen was the full time starter in that game. The game before, he pretty much started the whole game. Um, and then we had some momentum going, and we were off. This year, we started out again where we were like, okay, what's going on? But we're 3-0, and then we lost to Utah in just a bizarre game. The game is basically 22-3 for
Yeah.
95% of the game. You'd go, yeah, Utah has it. And then we scored three three straight drives we just have where it's like bam, bam, bam. We score 8 points, we make the 2 point conversion. All of a sudden we go back down, we score seven. It's like all of a sudden 19-3, and we are kicking an onside to maybe tie or win the game if we
Yeah.
get the onside kick, and we don't. So, and then after that game, we play at K State. They absolutely just take us apart. They saw something in that Utah game that they exploited because we barely put
Mhm.
up any stats. And since then, that's kind of been the deal. So I don't think Gundy's going to get fired because I think he just has so much longevity at the school. He has such a leash that still can be extended.
Mhm.
His comments in recent couple weeks here about fans not being able to, the fans who are criticizing him are not able to pay their bills and all type of stuff cannot be going over well in all the behind the scenes stuff because it's definitely not going over well and all in front of everyone here. So how does Oklahoma State go from here? And I'd say it's probably a coordinator change. I think there's a lot of people who would love to see Casey Dunn be replaced as the offensive coordinator. And I think it could be a little bit more of a personnel deal because when
Mhm.
in other sports for Oklahoma State, the basketball team's not doing well, when the baseball team's not doing well, when the wrestling team's not doing well, etc., we're blaming the athletes more than we're blaming than the coaching.
Mhm.
We're blaming the players. And football, we're looking a lot at the coaching staff because we don't know what the deal is with the players because we returned 20 out of 22 starters. So we're all the
Wow.
fans are pointing at the coaches going, "What's going on? Like something's got to be wrong with you guys. We returned 20 out of 22 starters." But in all reality, I think something's got to also be said where, yeah, we can point fingers and blame the coaches for sure. It's definitely warranted. We also kind of look around at the players a little bit too and go, "What is going on, guys? Mentality or something else is going on too?" Because having that dog in you is such like a catchy phrase or
Yeah.
whatever, but maybe I'll use it right here just this one time because I know it's just so overly used now as well. Just say, yeah, do you guys got it? Like, we're not gonna we won this game. It'll put us at 4-7, or 4-8, excuse me, and we'll get us to a bowl game. Won't really do much for us. So are we going
Mhm.
to fold immediately because Carl gets out a couple touchdown lead? Or are we going to hang in this until the end because we want to prove a point or prove something here? And also, are we going to hang in this? Is my better way for saying, are we going to keep trying? Hang in this is very strong wording. I don't know if there's a you guys could be winning by 2 touchdowns early on in the game. We could be trying to fight and claw back in and still be trying, but it not be that close as well too.
Mhm. Mhm. I did wanna hit on something really quick, Cal, because I think that this game might it could go a different direction, I think, than maybe if this game was being played at the beginning of conference play, for a couple of reasons. Now, I'll say this, when it comes to running the ball, we've been a little inconsistent at it throughout the season. I think if we were to dedicate ourselves to running the ball more often, obviously you would see more success. But this is an offense, of course, that plays through Shedeur and Travis. It makes sense. Kind of the magic number for this offense, though, like when we're really humming, our running backs get 20 plus carries in a game. So that's going to be something to look out for. Normally, when our offense does not reach its potential, it's not firing on all cylinders. It's usually just way too pass heavy, gets one dimensional. There are some things, though, that I think could dictate this game still just being pass heavy for the Buffs, and where they're not trying to run out the clock for a few reasons. One, this is our home finale. This is the last time Shador and Travis are gonna suit up in the black and gold for the Buffs at home, and we like to put on a show, man. So Shador's been able to rewrite all the single season passing records for the Buffs, since he's been here. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but I'm just saying this is going on in the back of my mind. There is one single game record that he hasn't broken yet, which is the single game touchdown record. It's 7. They could want to go for that. And I will say that could also, I expect the Buffs to stay aggressive on offense throughout the entire game because we still have a lot on the line. You've seen how messed up and how crazy all this college football playoff ranking stuff is. It's a slim margin because the Big 12 doesn't get any respect right now. For some reason, the Mountain West gets more respect than we do. I don't get it. But right now, style points matter. Margin of victory matters, especially if the SEC blows up against this weekend. So I will say, margin of victory, putting on a good show, putting up a lot of points, that should be very helpful in just the very slim odds that somehow the Big 12 will become a too bid league. If we're not able to get the buff luck that we need to make it to the Big 12 title game. For those reasons, I could see us still being pretty pass heavy, and we also have our starting running back out, Isaiah Gustive. So we will be going with Michael Welsh, true freshman, as well as Dallin Hayden as well. And I like those guys, but Augustive's been our best running back the whole season, and that's going to suck not having him available.
Yeah, the whole you guys got one more stat to kind of put out there. It's you could have 7 touchdowns in a game passing. Don't love that thought of you guys getting 7 touchdowns against us. But I do think it's possible. We gave up 56 points to Texas Tech. And after last week's game, a lot of the media hype and stuff about Oklahoma State was, yeah, this quarterback the whole season on the depth chart. What the heck was the deal? Why do we have Bowman starting? And I would say 2 things. One, he's a true freshman who Gundy does not typically start. Other couple things here is that he was 4th string on the depth chart until a month ago. I mean, on October 19th, we played the game against BYU, and Garrett Rangel, who was the starting quarterback for that game, breaks his collarbone during the game. Is out for, of course, the end of the season. And he's really the only other guy on the roster who has playing time besides Alan Bowman. I mean, he is. That's not just even hyperbole. He is. So he goes out. Bowman's back in. Then our third guy on the depth chart is Zane Flores, who's a redshirt freshman, highly touted, best player in the state of Nebraska. Matt Rule in Nebraska was trying to recruit him heavily and stuff before he came to Oklahoma State, but Rule kind of got in there a little bit too late, it seems. Maybe either way, Zane Flores was going to come to Oklahoma State. Who knows? But Flores had some surgery on his foot, and he had not played a snap this season, period. So it's not like he had seen game time. He had a kind of a bone spur type of deal on his foot that just kind of had been growing up and been nagging injury, and he didn't think he'd see the field this year. So he has, of course, the surgery. Then Rangel gets injured. Of course, maybe then Flores would have seen the field, but everything's woulda, coulda, shoulda. So now Smith, Malachi Smith, he's seeing the field really in garbage time here and there, and who knows how many actual reps he's getting with the 1s and 2s since October 19th. It's tough to tell. I mean, the team's had a bye week in between there, and it's just really tough. So when I tell Oklahoma State fans, hey, he might have been able to start the week before, sure, but you know what? It's a tough deal either way to start him on senior day over Bowman. As a head coach, I would not have to want to tell Bowman that because he got just a Big 12 championship last year. Won a bowl game over the A&M, and really helped propel the team to kind of heights we didn't think we'd have last year. But this year, the defensive side of the ball has just been horrendous. We gave up 56 points to Texas Tech. This is the same team that almost lost to Abilene Christian at home. I mean, ABCU. Now, granted, that's a long time ago, first game of the season, but I don't think Texas Tech is a great team. They have beaten Arizona State, but they're 7-4. They've lost games. They're not one of these teams we're talking about that could be playing Colorado in 2 weeks for the Big 12 championship, right? So We gave up 56 points to them. I do not see us stopping you guys from doing what you want to scoring unless there's crazy situations. And then I think that's where it's close. But at the end of the day, I keep saying that phrase because this is a 16.5 point like favorite for Colorado.
Oh, that's the spread right now?
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking on like ESPN.com. ESPN bet is where I'm pulling that from. Colorado's favored, the spread is, minus 16.5. Colorado's favored by 17. The over under is 64.5. So this is not going to be that close of a game. And if anyone wants to go back, I've got it on record and previous podcasts did before the season started. This was the game I was worried about. When I said, hey, I think Oklahoma State has Big 12 championship hopes and aspirations because last year we made it to the championship and we returned 20 out of 22 players. We've got Ollie Gordon. I can keep going. When I said, hey, Oklahoma State's got a chance to play in the cultural playoffs and win the championship this year in the Big 12, I went, but this game against Colorado is the one I'm most worried about. Like, I'm more worried about, besides Utah and K-State, who are also preseason favorites, right. I'm worried about Colorado more than any other of the other games we play. I'm more worried about that one than going to BYU. I'm more worried about that one than some others because it is oh my gosh, look around. There's this player over here. Oh, there's this celebrity over here. There's just so many different things that distract you. You've got the beautiful mountainous area, of course, Colorado. And I don't know how much that plays in a guy's head when he's in what we're going to be in the state of Colorado for, I mean,
it's more so the probably
hours.
feeling the altitude,
but
like that's real.
But yeah. So it's kind of that stuff, right? And I circled this game. It's 11 a.m. kickoff in Central Time, like it's 10 a.m. local. I mean, just whole deal is bizarre. I do agree with Deion. You guys play a lot of like early-ish games that it's weird, but it's also because you're Deion. Like they're gonna want to play you on TV. It's kind of the good and the bad you get with it. Like there's just only so many night games you can do. And yeah, I'd rather see Colorado play. I mean, the K-State Colorado game was awesome earlier this year. It did not turn out the way I know you guys wanted to, but it was just a fun game to watch as a fan of college football.
It was amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but all of this to say, I don't think we really stand that great of a chance of beating you guys or playing that tough or whatsoever. But I do think we stand a chance of like, hey, let's see how Rodney Fields, our backup running back, does, in this game. Because Ollie Gordon will, see a couple minutes of action, I'm sure, and he'll get out there. But if the game gets any bit close to being out of reach, and no matter what, think that any guy who's got any NFL aspirations, so Deshaun Stribley, our leading wide receiver, Ollie Gordon, running back, get pulled immediately, see what else we got. Mm-hmm. And then we see what, we see what else we got out there. We could do a little kind of basically scouting because we won't have the bowl game to do that this year. And Gundy's bowl record of going to like 18 bowl games in a year in a row, 18 bowl games straight, and having 18 seasons with a winning record, we'll break this. The one thing to take away from this game that Oklahoma State could have like circled and be like, hey, at least we did this. If we win this game, we'll be 4-8. That would match the worst season Gundy's ever had at Oklahoma State. Wow. Was also 4-8, which is his first year as head coach. So that's kind of like, okay, can we at least be 4-8 and at least not have the worst record? Because I'll tell you what, coming into the season, I had a couple of predictions and thoughts.
Yeah.
And it was all based on us winning the Big 12 championship this year. But it was, we'll retire Gundy will retire in his 20th season, which will be next year. He'll retire with his name being in the ring of honor we've got around our stadium, of all the guys' names that are just implanted on the side of the stadium. And he'll go down as, he already is the winningest coach in Oklahoma State history, but he'll go down as that and he'll retire after that. And he'll leave it under good hands with a brand new quarterback and brand new whole offense and defense. Because when you have 20 out of 22 starters returning, you're definitely not returning that many this next year, of course. Mm-hmm. So that's how it would go in my book. It's like, because I've talked to several Oklahoma State writers, Oklahoma State guys who work for Sports Illustrated, who cover for OU and all these other media outlets here. All of them agree next year will really be the worst season for Oklahoma State. So I think there's a definitely worthwhile of, okay, can we do some scouting? And I mean worst is in, hey, don't have any expectations. Like this team could also be a 4-8 team next year, 3-9, whatever you may want to say. I don't think next year's team is that much better. So what can we do in this last game to kind of hopefully be better and stand a chance next year. Now, we have seen the Big 12 just be completely up and down all over the
Any
place.
given week.
So who knows? Next year, maybe we go 6-6. I'm not, I'm not gonna call it before it happens. I'm not gonna be all doom and gloom. And then I did see somebody had a question here of how many players I think will transfer out of Oklahoma State in the
Ooh.
portal. And I would honestly say I think it'll be quite a few. All rosters have to be trimmed from like 130 to 105 this year. Going to the next. Gundy's talked a lot about how that just really sucks for guys. So I think guys will leave off of that. I have seen recruits are changing their commitments to Oklahoma State, to University of Texas San Antonio, and others that I'm like,
Oh,
whoa, they're in it with us. But you know what? I think that could be circumstantial as well too. And I think there'll be quite a few guys who will enter the transfer portal and see what's out there and possibly not come back. I also want to say when this happened before was 2022. And the next year we went to the Big 12 championship. So
yeah.
it did not matter that much. I do not think Gundy recruited Alan Bowman or whoever recruited Alan Bowman to come to Oklahoma State. I don't think it fit into an Oklahoma State profile of a starting quarterback. You talk
Mm.
about um, and I got a question for you in 1 second, so I'll finish this thought here.
You're good.
I'm monologuing, but you talk about a guy who was a third string quarterback at Michigan, who had basically transferred from Texas Tech to Michigan to have a chance to start, and he's a third string quarterback at Michigan. And then you're saying, hey, next year, after having 9 or 12 passes in 2 years, you're going to be the starting quarterback for a Big 12 team. I don't think that was the thought of bringing Alan Bowman in. I think that was really, hey, Gary Rangel played a little bit in 2022. Spencer Sanders was supposed to theoretically come back, and he transferred out. So it was Sanders Rangel. Maybe Sanders comes back and he isn't a shot, but Gundy doesn't just give it the keys to him because he was injured so often in Oklahoma State. You're going to have an open competition with Rangel. And then you got Bowman and Mike Gundy's son, Gunnar Gundy, the walk on, competing for that third quarterback spot, right? Like, I think that was the idea. I do
Mhm.
not think Gundy, Dunn, Tim Rattay, the quarterback's coach, anyone thought, oh, yeah, Alan Bowman will be the starter when we bring him in. I don't think that was the thought whatsoever. I think it was much more of, oh, yeah, we'll get Alan Bowman because we need like an insurance policy in case something happens with Rangel or in case Sanders does transfer out and Rangel's maybe not that great after the first couple of games or whatever. And then all of a sudden, basically, if I remember all this correctly here, Spencer Sanders, the second best passing yards guy for Oklahoma State in Oklahoma State history, transfers out of Oklahoma State initially to Auburn. Then he
Mhm.
cannot transfer to Auburn because his credits don't match up for a degree. So then he has to So then he transfers to Ole Miss, and of course, he's not starting over
No.
Jackson Dart. So he's at Ole Miss. He's gone. And apparently, there's also some background stuff. Maybe he's trying to transfer back to Oklahoma State after the Auburn thing didn't work out. Who knows?
Uh-huh.
All that's he said, she said. But then once that's happening, I think it was, all right, hey, Rangel, this is your team. Let's see how you can do this offseason, see how you look. And then he just never looked that great in the BYU game he played earlier this year. He was not passing the ball like just all over the field. He was running it real well. He provided a different dynamic for Oklahoma State, and BYU didn't know what to do with the quarterback who was all of a sudden just super mobile. It was a completely opposite game plan than they thought they were going to have against us, I'm sure. And we held it close, but Rangel got injured. So going back to that, I do think the Alan Bowman whole experience will be looked back on as, yeah, okay, that was kind of odd. That was great first year. Second year, what the heck happened? But that's also why he did not end his career at Texas Tech. You
Yeah.
had it's kind of the Two Face or Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, whatever you want to say, right? You've got the quarterback when he's really good and also when he's real iffy. It's kind of
Mhm.
the Tony Romo effect for any Cowboys fans out there of like, okay, that was good. All right, that worked out. And then, oh, that was bad again. I mean, you're just as the play's going, it could be a great play or it could be bad. You could juke an OU defensive lineman or you could throw a pick six. You never know.
Mhm.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts on Colorado just rejoining the Big 12 here as a whole? Not maybe just not in football here as well too.
Yeah. It's been perfect. Like it's been what we wanted. Again, like with Coach Prime coming here, again, like it's I think a lot of people that don't follow this program closely didn't haven't understood like why this is such a good fit. The autonomy that like again, like most of these blue blood programs, their kind of mentality is what can we tolerate, with some of these coaches and bringing them in here. And really credit to the administration, the program, the mentality here has been what can we do to empower this staff to really reach their potential. And they've given him autonomy, and even when his strategy has not been common, rather, I think we're about to see it become a lot more common with the rise of the transfer portal, all this sorts of stuff. He's operated with conviction, and I think that Colorado now coming in paired with Brett Yormark, who I think is a fantastic commissioner. I think that the future of the Big 12 is bright, much brighter than, of course, the where we were at in the Pac-12. And it's going to be interesting to see kind of where we go from here. But as like a Colorado fan, Cal, it feels so nice to be part of an environment in a community where you have really passionate fan bases and you have really quality football. Like you have programs that are built in different ways that play all sorts of different kinds of offenses and defenses. Like the Big 12, they do have this reputation of just being discounted, being slept on. They're not the conference that always has the most star power or whatever, but traditionally they've done things the right way, quote unquote, in that they develop and they play a really good brand of football. And so we were going to be G5 bound, man. That's how I saw it when we were on that 1-11 skid, and just there was a lot with the program that was we had all these academic restrictions for the last 20 years, and Prime come in really helped change all of that structurally with our program, and has put us back in a position to where we can compete, which is awesome. But it feels good, I think, to develop some new rivalries, kick back up some old ones, from the old Big 12, which is great. And like the fans have been like super welcoming and exciting. Like this is kind of we don't have anybody here that, tries to, act like well, maybe Utah, but we know what they're like, but there's no Texas or OU here. And so it really does feel like the crown for the Big 12 is wide open, and we'll see what changes next. I mean, I do wonder. I'm curious, Cal, what you think about this. Is it truly time for the Big 12 to maybe rename the conference or sell the naming rights, or go to playing 8 conference games? As much as I hate that, because people don't it's very clear, like the committees and people outside of this conference don't respect the conference for the quality that it has. I think, again, I'm not lying when I think it's the best pound for pound conference in college football. And it just sucks that together we are still fighting this narrative that you know when OU in Texas, when a mid Texas was in this program or in this conference, all of a sudden, it was great. But once these programs leave, all of a sudden it's a nothing burger. Where is the Mountain West just paying a bunch of committee members to prop up their teams, or the Pac-12 rather, for their future members? With all that extra money they got, like, to me, it just makes no sense on the lack of respect that this conference has gotten. And as much as I hate it, the SEC has created a narrative and a reputation that they're the toughest conference to play in because they play Mercer in November. And maybe you just need to do it. But I'm confident that Brett Yormark's going to right this ship and he's going to get us in good position. But I have still been a little bit surprised about how, yeah, even the ACC is getting more respect than what we get right now.
Yeah, I am too. And I've looked through several of like the schedules here. I mean, of OU, who's just a couple miles south from us here, they have got 4 wins. They've got 6 wins on the season, 4 of them, like you said and mentioning, are against non-conference opponents. I mean, could Oklahoma State have beaten Temple this year? I think so.
Yeah.
Houston? Maybe. We haven't won a conference game, so I'm not going to just say yes, but maybe. Tulane? Who knows? I mean, that's a good one for OU. I'll give it to them because they're ranked. But then Maine, like, what's going on here? And then, I mean, but OU 6-5, and they've got a win against Tulane, so I'll give them that. But then I look at Arkansas; they're also 6-5. They've got a win over Arkansas Pine Bluff. They lost to Oklahoma State, so I know we can beat them. Then they beat UAB, and they beat Mississippi State and Louisiana Tech. And their best win on the season, I'd say, is I mean, it's either got to be Mississippi State or Auburn. So you pick your worst case scenario there. And Mississippi State, by the way, is 0-7 in conference, and Auburn's 2-5 in conference. So those are in. It's just not. I mean, they also beat Tennessee by 5. I'm not gonna just absolutely gloss over that one. But that's kind of my point here. Of I think we got to go play 8 games because I think for the optics of it, and what was it? Chris Kleiman, K-State head coach, said it. He
Yeah.
said, "I don't know." He said, "Hey, 10-2 looks a lot better than 9-3," and I agree. I gotta say, any season where I look back, I go, Oklahoma State, we won 10 games that year. That's awesome. Like I I I was born in '93, but I've grown up with Oklahoma State fandom in my heart since day one. I remember when Les Miles in '02 and '03 beat OU, and we won Bedlam, and that's what mattered. It did not matter getting to a bowl game. It did not matter winning a bowl game, and I don't think we did in both years. It was we beat OU. Like, that's it. Oh, oops, we did it again. Was 2014. That year we did go to a bowl game because we beat OU. We had to beat them that game to go to a bowl game there, in 2014. So, and that's the Tyreek Hill, return 6, and he's kicked off the teams basically within 12 hours because he domestic abuse charges there that I'm not going to get into too much because I think that Oklahoma State should have kicked him off the team. They did. Um, I'm not going to talk anything else about any other university comparison here. I'm just leaving it there.
Mhm.
I I just I'm confused of why the Big 12 is devalued at this point. Of hey, I get it. Utah's on like their 4th quarterback. Cam Rising went out like kind of in week 2.5. Kind of tried to come back, did not look good, and is still out. I get it. Utah's on their 4th quarterback. Oklahoma State, we on paper, what's going on? Like most of the guys that need to do stuff, Brendan Presley, he's our best wide receiver and most amount of catches, but not most amount of yards. He's playing, Stribling's playing. Last year it was like, oh man, we're always missing a receiver, but we still somehow got all the way to the championship and played Texas, and they took us apart. But the team that was the best 4 in the country, so that's okay. I mean they're a Big 12 champion that did that well. So what's the difference? Texas this year too has their one game that they have a signature win. Well, I mean, beating Vanderbilt, like I just don't know where we kind of draw the line of, and I don't mean to throw shade at it necessarily. I just am like, you play. Oh, we're playing the teams in front of us. Cool. We will start to do that as well too. We will start to play the teams in front of us. Oklahoma State, we go to Oregon next year. We play out of Oregon. Not looking forward to it. Like I would love to say yeah I am, but not a chance. I
Well,
mean,
if it's the same as this year, I think a loss to Oregon counts as a win, doesn't it? I mean, that's how it seems for Boise State, right?
I guess so. Yeah, where do you'd be right. You'd be the guy to ask you. You're in the heart of it here with the whole Ashton Genty, Travis Hunter. What do you think of Boise State as a whole, though? Do you think they're a good team? Do you think they would beat the Big 12 champion or stand close to them if that was able to happen somehow, some way?
No, I think that they'd probably be in the middle of this conference. That's how I feel about it. I think they're propped up again, Ashton Genty's having a great year, but it's nowhere close to Barry Sanders. I think we can all agree with that. Again, it's kind of a down year for normal kind of Heisman hype. You don't have the big quarterbacks breaking all these records, anything like that. But again, you put Cam Scatteraboo on Boise State, he doesn't do the same thing. Maybe that is a little offensive, but again, I've never seen a team that's been credited more with a win in a loss they had And at non-conference, guys, teams aren't playing their best at the beginning of the season. Not at all. The good teams get beat all the time. I think Colorado's a good team, and we got our butt kicked by a Nebraska Cornhuskers team that I thought would win 10 games, by the way. That's still fighting for their bowl eligibility, aren't they? So it's it's crazy to me. And I don't understand it. I'm not a conspiracy guy, Cal, but to me, it's like Tulane lost at home to Kansas State. Tulane is ranked ahead of every other Big 12 team that's ranked right now in the top 25, and they're one spot behind Arizona State. BYU beat SMU. And if you're going to give Boise State all the credit for playing Oregon close in non-conference play, it's like that doesn't matter at all, or hasn't in the past in these rankings mattered at all for where they've been. So I don't know how you solve it, man, aside from we just need to call it what this is. It's going to piss people off, but this is the most competitive, toughest conference pound for pound in college football. And we need to, the SEC has needed to be copied for their cowardice for years on playing 8 conference games. And it's sad that the quality of college football suffers because of this, but it's like, it's what needs to happen, sadly.
Yeah, this was the best question here that I think it popped up in the comments just as we end this out here. But um, why not play 8 games? Like, why not play 8 games in conference at this point? Because I only see us adding more teams going forward in the Big 12.
Yeah.
I think that's how the Big 12 gets better's the wrong word, because I don't think because better's just so ambiguous. I think that's how the conference gains more notoriety. Is all of a sudden one year you've got UConn. Oh my gosh, UConn in basketball. Like, oh, UConn's won the past 2 championships, football, whatever other stuff going to add in. But I think all of a sudden, oh yeah, the Big 12 now has Gonzaga and UConn in it. Oh, cool. All right. So we're just talking about the Big 12 way more often. The whole ESPN TNT deal where basically TNT is going to do the basketball programming for ESPN, produce all of it, etc. With Chuck and Kenny and Shaq, maybe, and everyone. That was all where the TNT said, okay, well, we'll take some Big 12 basketball and football games, though, to fill up our programming. And on the surface, that would seem like a really dumb move because there's just so many basketball, so many football games. But I think it's a smart idea from the TNT crew of going, hey, if we do this, then all of a sudden, maybe a couple years down the line, the Big 12 is just insanely good in basketball, where it's not a competition anymore. Like
Yeah.
Arizona's playing just top 15 team night after night, it seems, and they're top 15 ish. And I do think the Big 12 just gets better in the football aspect of it as well by just going, all right, let's just invite Boise State. Screw it.
Yeah.
Like, because
Yeah.
basically, Nick Saban was on earlier today with Pat McAfee, and I was listening to it and still shaking my head at this because Nick Saban said, how do you compare all these teams together? But what do you think if Ole Miss all of a sudden joined the Big 12? Like, if Ole Miss joined the Big 12, I think they'd be maybe just as good as K-State. Like, I don't fear Ole Miss. I do not have now I fear them as an Oklahoma State fan because they beat us in bowl games every time we go to a bowl. We play them in the Sugar Bowl every time we go to the we've lost them in the Sugar Bowl twice, 2 separate times, just mind numbing. But in the Cotton Bowl once. So Ole Miss itself, yes. But like if Mizzou just randomly rejoin the Big 12 tomorrow,
Yeah.
what are we doing? I mean, that's kind of the deal here of what's going on. How could we have the teams rejoin or do whatever, and then all of a sudden we're okay, cool. All right. Mizzou's in. Oh, well, they weren't that good to begin with. That's why I'd rather just say, hey, let's take Ole Miss or Auburn. I mean, am I trying to take Alabama? No, Alabama has a bunch of 5 stars on their team. They probably would do pretty darn good in the Big 12. They probably do pretty darn good in the Big 10. They probably do pretty darn good in the AAC as well, not
Yeah.
just the ACC. So all that together here. I just totally agree. I think we got to play 8 games. All right, last question here from Alex here. Will Colorado be in the Pop-Tart Bowl? And what's the mystery Pop-Tart flavor?
You
I think
know,
it's got to be cinnamon sugar, right? The mystery flavor. Just got to go classic. They call it
well,
easy.
Well, Alex is actually one of my best friends in real life. We were talking about this on the phone the other day. He wants to see cinnamon sugar as well. So, and that is the one that my mother bought the most growing up. Now, we're not eligible for the Pop Tart Bowl because we still have to play in the Pac 12 bowls for the next couple years. All the teams that moved over, the four corner schools. So, we got to play. And if we don't make the college football playoff, again, slim odds we do, but if we don't, then we're playing in, like the Las Vegas Bowl or something like that. Maybe the Alamo Bowl, which would be nice being here in San Antonio now. That would be cool. But yeah, right now we're going to have to wait a couple more years in order to be eligible for the Pop Tarts Bowl. That's the bowl I care most about outside the college football playoff. I would love to play in it. And my mystery Pop Tart flavor, I'm just going to go right now. I think s'mores is an underrated flavor, and it would be great to see s'mores featured as the mystery Pop Tart this year.
Interesting. I think that'd be a lot of fun as well. I did not realize where the Hot Tarts Bowl was until just googling it here. I would love to go. I was just in Orlando last week. Love
Yeah.
to go back. I mean, it'd be great to go visit there this time of year. But apparently, the Big 12 team that'd be going would be Iowa State, or
Okay.
maybe one guy has got BYU. So, um,
K-State beat them or won it last year, right?
yeah. So maybe there's a good shot at that. The very last thing I promise
Yeah.
here is you said you think there's a slim chance you guys go college football playoffs. I think there's a pretty darn good chance you guys one beat us, as I've said several times this weekend, and then also I think there's a good chance that you guys are playing the college football, the Big 12 championship, and then could win that one as well. Is that kind of what you're thinking here, or what do you think at least?
Yeah, our best odds, because right now, as much as I would love it, again, I think there's probably a less than 1% chance right now that the Big 12 is a two-bid league right now. I think we'll have to blow y'all out, and some other things will have to happen in order for, like in other conferences, for us to get in that way if we're not making the conference title game. We need some things to happen. I think like mathematically, it's like 5 or 6% chance, but we need the Arizona Wildcats to win this week. We need Kansas State to beat, or we need the Arizona Wildcats to beat ASU. We need Kansas State to beat Iowa State. And we need something else to happen. Like 2 out of those 3 teams got to lose, and we got to take care of business. So not all hope is lost. This almost seems like a season of destiny right now with opening up conference play with that Hail Mary win against Baylor. We kind of need to cap it with on this end with another Hail Mary type, play from the rest of the conference in order to find ourselves in the championship game. So we'll have to see if we can get that luck this weekend. But regardless, I know that Brett Yormark's really, probably disappointed with how this conference is being perceived and ranked. But you can't be happier from another perspective of just 9 teams still having mathematically a chance to make the championship game. I mean, is that not great parity? Is that not great television and drama?
I think it is for sure. I really hope that Oklahoma State wins this weekend, but if we don't, I really hope then that's you guys here, winning, because at least it's got to be a team that beats us. It's got to make it, right? Like it could be Arizona State, it could be you guys, whatever. But my mom went to Colorado, so I'm rooting for Colorado and the Buffs. We've got no other family members that have big allegiances, at least in the Big 12 whatsoever here, at least have a chance. So, with all that being said, Dave, thanks so much for joining here on the latest episode of the Glen Alexander Tour podcast. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Cal. Thanks for having me. Let's be sure to get back together and do this next time we face off.
For sure. Sounds great. And we'll have to get you on that Big 12 huddle here before too long. Any of my listeners who don't know where to find you, where can they?
David Talks Buffs, Twitter, YouTube. Guys, please go subscribe to Cal. His channel's in the description of my video as well. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone, and we'll catch you guys again soon.